Hello students, hope you all are fine. And today's topic of discussion is anti-malarial drug, right? Which is definitely under the category of anti-protozoal drugs. Fine. So we will definitely discuss few drugs, right, which are useful in case of malaria. Okay, this is a first on-demand lecture. Thank you to Pharm students who have demanded this lecture, and definitely this is also useful for those students who are preparing for GPAT examination, right? So in that way, it is helpful for the undergraduate students also, right? So hope you will learn the basic concepts and the detailed pharmacology of anti-malarial drugs. So let's go through the learning objectives at the end of this video lecture. Maybe two or three lectures we will need, right, to complete the whole details. But at the end of this video lectures, you will be able to describe a life cycle of malaria. This is very important because without understanding this life cycle, you will not be able to understand the pharmacological classification of antimalarial drug, right, which is the basis for the classification, as well as the mechanism of action of many drugs. Okay. Secondly, you will be able to narrate characteristics of five different species of the malarial parasite which are known to cause malaria in human. Okay, so that all details definitely we will cover. You will be able to enlist symptoms of the malaria, and you will be able to classify drugs which are useful as a anti-malarial drug. Lastly, you will be able to explain detailed pharmacology of this anti-malarial agent. We will try to cover prototype from each category, and also will try to cover one which are considered as the most important as far as the therapeutics are concerned. Okay, so let's start with the introduction. Definitely you all know that it is a mosquito borne disease, right? So it's an infectious disease, right, and it's a one of the most infectious disease, right, that has been you said you can find out from the epidemics. Okay, now it is definitely produced by a protozoa, right, parasites, that is protozoa, and protozoas from the genus plasmodium, they are the one which are responsible for the malaria, but it is transmitted only by female anopheles mosquito, right. There are five species of plasmodium that we are going to check, and each of this they have a sexual life cycle in this organism only, so this is carrier. Okay, and bite of these mosquitoes, female anopheles mosquitoes, will lead to entry of this plasmodium in the human, and in human they have a asexual life cycle, right. So there are two life cycle which we are going to learn in the you can say that next, you can say that slide, and there you will learn these two cycles, right. Asexual life cycle which happens in case of female anopheles mosquito, and you can say that sexual life cycle which happens in case of human. Okay, so disease can be acute or chronic. Acute, you all know that it is for the duration is short, and chronic definitely when the duration is, you can say that, long, right. And definitely this chronic phase could occur more, you can say, repeat frequently with the species that is plasmodium vivax and plasmodium ovale, right, which have a phase in liver, right. In human asexual life cycle, they have you can say it, hypnozoid sleeping form of the parasites, and that sleeping forms exist in case of liver, which may be responsible for relapses also, and that is the reason why we are considering as a acute. Okay, we have said that in the learning objectives that we will definitely understood the characteristic of all five human you can say, species, right, which are known to cause malaria in the human, and definitely that this details we will discuss in the next slide. But these names, right, of these five species are plasmodium falciparum, plasmodium vivax, ovale, malaria, and knowledge, right. Until 2002 we were knowing only these four species only, right. But then in a later phase we came to know that knowledge also is an important you can say that parasite, right? Important protozoa which is responsible for malaria in the human, right? Previously it was considered as a, as you said, a reason for malaria in animals only. It was not considered to cause malaria in case of human, right? But now we are knowing that it is also responsible for malaria in the human, fine. So why the concern is there, right? Why we are so much discussing about malaria and anti-malarial drugs? The reason is definitely the epidemiology, the spread that malaria is having. You can just see that it is the most prevalent disease in the world, right? And 100 to 300 million new cases they are reported annually. This is not a small figure, right? And these cases which are reported, right, they, you can just see that I divided this map of world in three different parts. The yellow part definitely is either is not having, you can say it, malaria, or maybe if malaria was there it is now eradicated. The orange zones, they have been areas with the limited risk, right? These are the areas with limited risk. And the yellow one, right, you can just see that includes major parts of the India also, right? So those are the one areas where the malaria transmission occurs, right? So almost 90 countries, right? And more than 2.5 billion population of the world, they are living in a malarious area, right? This is not a small figure, because almost 40% of the total population you are considering when you are considering this figure, right? And it is almost 100 to 300 million new cases that have been reported per year, and 1 to 3 million deaths they have been reported annually. Okay, so this is a very big figure, right? Almost it has been reported that approximately 1200 deaths per hour is because of malaria, right? Per day, sorry, not per hour but per day. So 1200 deaths per day. And that also, you will be again surprised to know that most of these deaths they are in young, because that population, right, mostly children. And that definitely young population for any country is asset, you all know that. And the socio-economic problems that are associated with this epidemiology, definitely that also needs to be considered. Okay, so these figures definitely, if layman is knowing, right, definitely we are discussing so much about the epidemiology of corona and HIV and cancer, right? Nowadays you every time you came to know that this many cases of corona have been reported and this many deaths, this figure looks very small when you check this figure. Okay, so 10 to 30 lakh deaths per year, right? And most of this death they occur in the region of Africa, right? Especially the sub-Saharan part, right? So total number of cases and total number of death, 90% of this both figure they are being represented by African countries, right? So the big threat for the region of Africa. Okay, so with these details let's move to the life cycle of the malarial parasite. Definitely we have learned that malarial parasite requires two hosts, right? So, and the reason is sexual life cycle only happens in case of female Anopheles mosquito. And then definitely to get increased in number, they require an asexual cycle, and that happens in case of human, right? So that's why there are two hosts, right? Sexual life cycle of, you can say, the malarial parasite is called as schizogony, right? What is the name? Is, sorry, sporogony, right? That's called as a sporogony. And sporogony will result in a formation of because that special type of structures, and that you will come to know in the next slide, right, where I will show life cycle of the malaria. And that's why that refers to sporozoites, right? One which is formed by sporogony, that is called as a sporozoites. Okay, so this is the name of sexual life cycle. Similarly, asexual life cycle, that's called as a schizogony. Okay, we call it as a schizogony. And the forms, asexual life forms which are produced by this schizogony, that is called as a schizont. Okay, so if you know what is the name of the, or you can, which name of, you can say, reproduction method that is involved for this, you can say that parasites, then the name which we are going to form, right? Because life cycle of malarial parasite will have different names that you need to remember, right? So a word like sporozoids, schizons, this will frequently come into our discussion, and for that you should be knowing that what are the name of this cycle. So sexual life cycle is referred as a sporogony, asexual life cycle is referred as a schizogony. Okay, so once this anopheles mosquito is having infection with the parasite, right? I use the word infection because not all anopheles mosquito are having these parasites, right? Only few of these anopheles mosquitoes, female anopheles mosquito, they have this plasmodium, and it is also reported that the activity of female anopheles mosquito also get affected by the plasmodium load, right? More the load of plasmodium species is there, more is the activity been depressed. So we say that only human are the sufferers from the malaria, but also female anopheles mosquito could have these symptoms, but definitely will not be able to recognize, right? Research is definitely, you can identify a few articles related with this. But this female mosquito, right, why it enters in the human, right? Definitely to get the, you can say, blood, right? Mosquito will bite the humans, and while biting the, you can say, human, right, while they will take the blood, while they will suck the blood, they will introduce this parasite in the human, right, through the skin. Now again the question is there, because this sexual life cycle we will learn that sporozoids, right, which are the forms produced by sexual life cycle by sporogony, they are present actually in the salivary gland. Okay, and while sucking the blood, definitely this mosquito should be releasing these sporozoids through this salivary gland. Okay, so what is the reason for that? The reason is when they are sucking the blood, they want the blood, sufficient quantity of blood to be sucked out. And you know that wherever they will rupture our blood capillary, immediately the blood coagulation cascade will start. Okay, you know that wherever there is a rupture of blood capillary, it results in a coagulation cascade. And to prevent this coagulation cascade, anticoagulant, right, that is released by this female anopheles mosquito, that is called as a anopheline. And just like, say for example, heparin is a natural anticoagulant, endogenous anticoagulant from the in the human, right, that is present in basophil and mast cell. Similarly, anopheline is a anticoagulant that is present in the female anopheles mosquito, right? It also reduces perception of pain, right, which also may be beneficial for the mosquito to suck optimum quantity, maximum quantity of blood. Okay, so while releasing this anopheline from the salivary gland, they also releases sporozoid through the saliva, and that enters in the human blood. Once it enters in the human blood, it consists of three different phases, right? The life cycle, asexual life cycle, consists three phases. First phase, that's called as a pre-erythrocytic cycle. Pre-erythrocytic cycle is very short cycle of 30 minutes, right? Because once they are entered, plasmodium has entered in the human blood, maybe it is not competent enough, right, to grow within a blood, and that's why they will go to a safe place, right? That safe place is liver. So within 30 minutes from the blood, that all, you can say, sporozoids will get disappeared, and this disappeared blood cell will move to the liver, right? So up till this, the phase is referred as this pre-erythrocytic cycle. Now in liver, definitely they will grow, they will asexually by schizogony, they will definitely multiply, right? And this definitely in the parenchymal cells of the liver. And once they are grown, now they are mature enough, they are competent enough to be released in the blood circulation. Okay, so they will rupture these hepatocytes, and now they will enter in the blood where their major source of energy is present, and that is definitely hemoglobin. You know that hemoglobin is a respiratory pigment and is a major protein of your blood. So out of that hemoglobin, globin serves as a major source of amino acid for this plasmodium species, and that phase constitutes the endoerythrocytic cycle, which is responsible for all symptoms, right, major symptoms of the malaria. Okay, so three, you can say, cycles, right, three stages, the phases that we have learned. One is a pre-erythrocytic cycle. Pre means the very primitive, right? That is before. So before RBC cycle, right, or very initial cycle, that you can consider as a pre-erythrocytic cycle. Exo, right, because definitely major cycle is within the erythrocyte, that is RBC, that is what you call as a endo-erythrocytic cycle. But here the cycle is outside. Exo refers to outside the RBCs, erythrocyte. That's why exoerythrocytic cycle. And last one is within the RBC. That's why endoerythrocytic cycle, right? So this is a very primitive phase, right? Then the major one, where which your you can say plasmodium will you can grow and will become competent enough to you can say infect the RBC, and within the RBC they will show their major asexual phases, right? Major multiplication will happen in case of this cycle. Okay, let's learn the details that are related with the life cycle of the malaria. Okay, so as I've shown that the sexual life cycle definitely happens in case of gut, right? In the female Anopheles mosquito, because enzyme assembly is there. But this once these you can say sporozoites are now you can say they have multiplied, right, after fertilization, now this will move to you can say that salivary gland, and through salivary gland wherever they will suck a blood, this you can say sporozoites will get released, right? So it will infect human. You can just see that broken epidermis and blood vessel. Now this sporozoites, so from here sporozoites to this liver, this will take 30 minutes approximately. That is pre-erythrocytic cycle. Once they are in liver, now they will multiply asexually, they will form schizons. These are called as the tissue schizons, right? And normally again we will learn that some form of plasmodium, they have you can say that schizons which are present in both, right? That is in case of liver also, in case of blood also, it will retaining the schizons in the liver, right? That's called as an exoerythrocytic cycle, and that will serve as a latent or you can say hidden type of a plasmodium species which could produce relapses. Okay, very important phase of life cycle of the RBC. Definitely we will learn in later, but major cycle is definitely this one, right? That is endoerythrocytic cycle. Okay, once been taken in the liver, definitely parenchymal cell, they will grow, multiply. Once they are competent enough, now they are increased in number, they will rupture these cells, and now they will enter in the blood circulation. Now once entered in this blood circulation, they will be binding to some specific cell surface proteins which are present on the surface of RBCs, and through this entry point, okay, through these receptors they will enter within the RBCs. Okay, once they are within the RBC, right, here the one which are released from the liver, right, rupture of the liver cell and then entry into the blood circulation, these are called as a merozoites. Mero refers to partial, right, because they are not still a mature form, immature forms. That's why we'll call it as a merozoites. See, very important names. Sporozoites, one which are formed by the sporogony, that are sporozoites. Here this is definitely sporozoid. Once it becomes mature, it is called as a schizont. This is present in a tissue, right? This is present in blood. If we will make it presence in blood, this is called as a blood schizont. If these are present in tissue, we'll call it as a tissue schizons. Okay, so once you learn this name, then the pharmacology of anti-malarial drug will be very easy. Now, these merozoites will now enter in the RBC, right? Once they infect the RBC, now they will create a food vacuole. Okay, and this food vacuole will start digesting hemoglobin, right? From hemoglobin, they will take globin, right? They will digest as an amino acid, and this will be used for their growth. The heme part, that is toxic for the parasite, right? Just like you know that a very important mythological event that you call as a Samudra Manthan, right? And in that case, definitely Amrut as well as Vish, right? Both were generated, right, in the process. And definitely this also you can consider similar way, that while digesting the hemoglobin, globin is considered as a Amrut for the parasites, but heme is considered as a Vish or toxin for the parasites. So they will try to convert in a non-toxic form, and that's called as a HemaJoin. Okay, so heme is converted in HemaJoin, right? That's how they convert toxic heme into a non-toxic product. Okay, during this process definitely they will grow, these merozoites they will grow, and this is a characteristic ring stage. You can just see that This is histologically very important, because if a person is having symptom of malaria, and a pathologist or a doctor, right, will observe the symptoms of malaria and will try to identify and confirm the malaria, they will check presence of this ring stage in the RBCs of the patient, right, of the blood sample of the patient. Okay, so this ring stage now finally will become mature, and this will further develop into trophozoite. Tropho refers to nutrient. So now it has taken nutrient, now it has become almost mature, and that's called as a trophozoite, right? So just to understand the name, we have learned the meaning of tropho, right? So trophozoite, merozoite, classical ring stage, trophozoite, and now you can just see that sporozoite, right? Almost 8 to 32 schizons, you can say that now are, you can say, present in the RBC. Now the source of energy is completely, you can say, taken up, right? RBC, whatever hemoglobin traces were there, that have been taken up by this schizon. No more energy source is there. So now they will rupture this RBC. Also, the number of, you can say, this asexual life cycle form also has increased. So that will also induce rupture. When they produces this rupture, lots of HemaJoin gets released in the blood circulation, and because of that, lots of TNF alpha also will get released, and this cause classical shivering effects, right? You know that malaria, ગુજરાતીમાં જેને આપણે ટાઢિયો તાવ કહીએ, રાઈટ, કે 2 દિવસે 3 દિવસે આપણને એકદમ જે કહી શકાય ધ્રુજારી આવે, રાઈટ, that's called as shivering effects, chills, right? That is because of rupture of RBC, because many merozoites have infected RBC. I have shown here one, but definitely there are many such RBCs which could have infected, and this life cycle follows a classical phase, maybe of 48 hours, maybe 72 hours, 24 hours, okay, right? So at the end of 24 hours, at the end of 48 hours, all of these RBCs which are having these schizons, mature form, they will be released again as a merozoites. And when they are released, lots of RBC also is ruptured, right? That is, hemolysis will occur. Secondly, lots of HemaJoin is released, and TNF alpha. These all will lead to a shivering effect, chills, right? These all are classical symptoms, right, that you can correlate. Now each of these merozoite is now again, you can say that, see that is now infecting a new RBC, right? So this is a life cycle that happens in case of, you can say that, a human, right? That's called as an asexual life cycle. Now this is not a simple, you can say, process, because the multiplication is exponential, right? Multiplication is almost exponential, because you consider just an example that I would like to give, which is given in Rangendale, that phenomenal rate of multiplication that you can observe. Okay, so that maybe, say for example, single plasmodium species, right? The parasite, single parasite. Let us consider plasmodium vivax. If a single parasite of plasmodium vivax is present in the blood, right, is present in the blood, within 14 days there will be 250 million merozoites in human body, in the blood circulation, right? From a single merozoite there are 250 million merozoites, right, in 14 days. This is not a small number. And to appreciate the action of anti-malarial drug, you consider that even if you want to maintain equilibrium, right, that 250 million merozoites are present in your blood, and your doctor says start giving you anti-malarial drug, and you want to maintain this, you do not want to reduce the number, you want to maintain this number, then also 94 destruction of parasite every 48 hours you will require, right? This number is required to only maintain the number as an equal. To reduce the number, you require more than 94% of the CIDL action of the parasite. Okay, so now you can imagine the role of anti-malarial drug. Fine, chalo. Let's discuss few of the very important details of this cycle. As I discussed, definitely this RBC will rupture, and this ruptured RBC will infect new RBC, right? And that is how they will continue to multiply. But some of these, you can say that, structures, right, some of these trophozoites, they will differentiate as, you can say that, sexual form of, you can say that, malarial parasite, right? That's called as a gametocyte. You know that word gamete, right? Gamete is related with the cells which are produced in the your sex organ, right, which are related with the sexual life cycle. So gametocytes, and these have been shown as a male and female both form, right? And this stays within the blood circulation as a sexual form. And whenever next mosquito bite is there, they will be sucking blood, and definitely with that blood, now it will enter within the Anopheles mosquito, and there it constitutes the sexual life cycle. Okay, so this too definitely, because sexual life cycle cannot happen in case of human, so it will be taken in the mosquito. In mosquito it will migrate to gut, right, and there they will fertilized. Once they fertilize, it will form ookinete, right. We will learn that name in the next slide. Ookinete is a rare type of a zygote, right. You know that when a sperm and an ovum they do meet, right, here we'll call as a microgamete and a macrogamete. Micro means one which is male because it is smaller in size, and macro, that is female gamete, because it is larger in a size. So this microgamete and macrogamete will fertilize, that definitely it will result in fertilization, and that will result in zygote. But the zygote which is formed by this fertilization process is a rare type of a zygote which is motile, right. This will further go as a oocyst and will lead to formation of sporozoites, and these sporozoites will again be present in the salivary glands. Okay, and now it is ready to infect another human. That's how it goes on. So these gametocytes are important, right. We will discuss, because many drugs can prevent the transmission of malaria, and they do act as a gametocidal agents. They will act on this form of the malarial parasite. Second is, with the Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium ovale, this erythrocytic cycle is there in all types of Plasmodium, but Plasmodium vivax and ovale also shows the sleeping form of the, you can say that, the schizons, right, which are called as the tissue schizons. They are present within the liver for maybe for few months or few years also, and that is definitely responsible for the transmission, right, from, you can say that, long term transmission that you can consider for, you can say that, this type of a disease. Okay, so this, because they are sleeping form of the, you can say that, these schizons, they are called as the hypnozoites, right. You know that hypno refers to sleeping form, right, because they are not present in the blood. So normal drug like chloroquine, which is a very good blood schizonticidial agent. See, now you will be able to learn this term, right. When I say that this chloroquine is a blood schizonticidial agent, you know that cidal means to kill, right. So one which kills schizont in the blood, that is acting on the endoerythrocytic cycle, right. So that is definitely blood schizonticidal. And one which is tissue schizonticidal agent, right. So for Plasmodium vivax and oral Plasmodium ovale, you also need to kill these hypnozoites, otherwise relapse will be produced continuously, right. And that case definitely these hypnozoites also need to be killed, right. So sleeping form of liver also do exist for some form of, you can say that, the Plasmodium species. Okay, so these are the details that are required for, you can say, the life cycle of malaria. Let's check one more diagram, right, that will give you more idea. Let's revise with a new diagram. You can just see that same way, right. This is the one, you can just see that Plasmodium which is present in the mosquito. This is infecting now this is mosquito bite, right, through which it has entered in the blood circulation. Within few minutes it will go into liver, they will infect liver cells, it will lead to schizons, right, schizogony, and then definitely they will rupture. Once they are ruptured, that now this is in blood circulation, these merozoites definitely now infect RBCs. You can just see that characteristically trophozoites. These trophozoites will definitely now mature, schizogony, and that will result in formation of schizons. Now they will again rupture, right. Once the hemoglobin is emptied, definitely now they will rupture these RBC, release of hemozoin, and they will infect new RBC. This is how they will multiply. But some form of trophozoites, they will differentiate into gametocytes, right, male and female both, and they will be taken up by mosquito again wherever new bite is there. And in mosquito again you can just see that this is a X-flagellated microgamete, okay, it's a male, and this is a macrogamete, it's a female. This will fertilize, formation of a zygote, that's called as a ookinete. This ookinete will develop into oocyst, and now this oocyst will rupture, will lead to release of sporozoites from gut. Now it will migrate to salivary gland, and then it will again, you can say, see that it is now ready to infect new human. Okay, I hope it is now very clear to you. Let's revise this through some videos.
When a female Anopheles mosquito penetrates human skin to obtain a blood meal, it injects saliva mixed with an anticoagulant. If the mosquito is infected with Plasmodium, it will also inject elongated sporozoites, motile spindle-shaped asexual cells, into the bloodstream of its victim. The sporozoites travel to the liver, where they enter liver cells and rapidly divide asexually. This asexual division, which is called schizogony, generates the next life cycle form, called merozoites. The released merozoites invade other liver cells and enter the host's bloodstream, where they invade erythrocytes. Once inside the erythrocyte, the merozoite begins to enlarge as a uninucleate cell termed a ring trophozoite. The trophozoite's nucleus then divides asexually to produce a schizont which contains several nuclei. The schizont then divides and produces mononucleated merozoites. The erythrocyte ruptures and releases toxins throughout the body of the host, bringing about the well-known cycle of fever and chills that is characteristic of malaria. Plasmodium enters a sexual phase when some merozoites in the erythrocytes develop into gametocytes, cells capable of producing both male and female gametes. Erythrocytes containing gametocytes do not rupture. Gametocytes are incapable of producing gametes within their human hosts, and do so only when they are extracted from an infected human host by a mosquito. Within the gut of the mosquito, the gametocytes form male and female gametes. The resultant diploid zygotes develop within the mosquito's intestinal walls and ultimately differentiate into oocysts. Within the oocysts, repeated mitotic divisions take place, producing large numbers of sporozoites. These sporozoites migrate to the salivary glands of the mosquito, and from there are injected by the mosquito into the bloodstream of a human, thus starting the life cycle of the parasite again.
Let's check one more video.
The malaria parasite's life cycle is very complex, involving many stages. As the mosquito feeds, malaria sporozoites enter into the human bloodstream. They quickly make their way to the liver and infect liver cells with the help of the circumsporozoite protein. The parasite develops into mature schizonts, creating tens of thousands of merozoites, which burst out of the cell and journey back toward the bloodstream. They then infect healthy red blood cells, reproducing and eventually rupturing the cell, liberating more merozoites, which in turn go on to infect other cells, leading to the massive destruction of red blood cells. A few of the infected cells develop into gametocytes, which can remain in the bloodstream for several days and may be ingested by another mosquito during a subsequent feeding. Inside the mosquito, the gametocytes develop into new sporozoites. So now the human has infected the mosquito, the life cycle comes full circle and continues.
I hope it is now very clear to you that how Plasmodium species do replicate, how do they multiply, okay, and sexual as well as asexual life cycle, both we have discussed. This we will need at the time of classification of anti-malarial drug, right? So yeah, one more thing that I would like to mention here, right, that here we have shown that this definitely Plasmodium species, they do invade erythrocyte, right, that is RBC, and we have also said that it is through the presence of some surface receptors, okay. So that is different for different types of Plasmodium species. Say for example, Plasmodium falciparum has a family of binding proteins that can recognize a variety of host cell molecules, okay, and Plasmodium falciparum invades almost all stages of erythrocytes. Alright, you know that there are many stages of erythrocytes, right, throughout their life cycles, and that is the reason why Plasmodium falciparum can achieve high parasitemias, right. Parasitemias means higher level of the parasites in the blood, fine. Plasmodium vivax on the other hand, right, it selectively binds to few proteins, like say for example Duffy chemokine receptor protein. or maybe reticulocyte specific proteins, and that is the reason why Plasmodium vivax can infect reticulocyte more commonly, okay, as compared to the RBCs. And definitely those patients or maybe those individuals who are Duffy negative, definitely 5x will invade only reticulocytes, okay. So these are very interesting detail that definitely you can find in the research articles, okay. So this is regarding the invasion. Now we will move to the classification of, you can say that, anti-malarial drug. So we will first start with the drugs, right, which are used to treat the acute attack, okay. So and these are called as a definitely blood schizonticidal agents, right. Why they are called as a schizonticidal? Because they are killing schizons, right. The schizons is, these are mature form of the, you can say that, parasites, right, which will multiply, which will grow in form of merozoites within the RBCs, right. So because they are present in blood, that's why blood, and they are killing the schizons, that's why blood schizonticidal agents. These are used to treat the acute attack, right, what we call as a suppressive or a clinical cure, right. And most of the drugs are indicated for this reason only. Say for example, a very famous chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, right. Hydroxychloroquine, you all know that is used right now in corona also, and many you can say that, autoimmune disease like systemic, you can say that, lupus erythematosus, or maybe say for example, just a minute, my battery is running low, so I have to just, you have to wait for some minutes. Yeah, back to the action, fine. So these drugs, right, what you call as a, drugs used to treat the acute attack, right, they are definitely acting on the erythrocytic form of the Plasmodium, right. So in infection with Plasmodium falciparum and malaria, definitely there is no exoerythrocytic cycle, there is no phase, hidden phase, latent phase in the liver. So they are definitely very much effective with this type of drug, right, which you call as a drug for clinical cure or acute attack. But in case of Plasmodium vivax and oval, definitely you need to kill these schizons which are present in blood as well as in the tissue, right, that is exoerythrocytic form, okay. Otherwise it will result in a relapse, okay. Drugs which are belonging to this category, they include, as I told you, that quinine, chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, right. Hydroxychloroquine, as we are discussing, that it is used for some autoimmune disease like arthritis, systemic lupus erythematosus, or maybe say for example right now it is indicated for corona, okay. Yeah, other drug include definitely halofentrin, proguanil, pyrimethamine, atovaquone, tetracyclines, right, like doxycycline. And recently you said that, some of the compounds from a Chinese herb, that is quinhaoshu, right, and that is artemether, artiflin, artesunate. These are some of the drugs which you can consider as a drug which are used to treat the acute attack, okay. Moving toward the next is the drug which are used for, you can say, radical cure, right. And as I told you that Plasmodium vivax and oval, they are having an exoerythrocytic form of, you can say, parasite, right. There are some hidden type of, you can say, hypnozoites which do exist for such type of environment. So in that cases, right, along with the blood schizonticidal agents, you also need to kill these schizons, right, which are called as the tissue schizons. So that's why these drugs which are used as a for radical cure, they are called as a, these drugs are called as a tissue schizonticidal agent, okay. And only few drugs, like say for example primaquine, it's a very famous, very important drug. Primaquine, again to note, primaquine is not having its usefulness in the endoerythrocytic cycle, so it is not used for acute attack. But apart from acute attack, all other actions you can find with the primaquine, right. And most important being is a radical cure. And that's why a comment like question could be asked that in treatment of Plasmodium vivax, you need to give chloroquine and primaquine in combination, right. So this combination therapy definitely is important here, because you need to kill the schizons present in blood as well as in the tissues, okay. So tefanoquine, primaquine, these are some of the drugs definitely that you can consider as a use for the radical cure. Moving toward the next is drugs which are used for chemoprophylaxis, okay. Now definitely this is a causal prophylactic drugs, right, because these are blocking the link between exoerythrocytic stage and you can say that erythrocytic stage, right. There are no drug which you can call as a true, you can say it, chemoprophylactic drug, right? Because these are just blocking this link between these two, right? So that is how they will prevent the malarial attack, right? And this is specifically important for those who are traveling, right, to the areas where you can say that such type of chances of getting malarial infection is there. And in that case, definitely chloroquine is a very important drug, because the half life of drug is quite long, right? Safety profile also, considering the other drugs, the chloroquine is having a good position. But then you should also check that the area where you are migrating or you are traveling, the plasmodium species are not resistant to chloroquine, right? Because in majority of the areas of Africa, chloroquine is now become resistant, fine. So that you definitely need to check that if chloroquine sensitivity is there or not. Okay, so true causal prophylaxis definitely is not feasible, right, at present, but definitely it could be achieved in future through vaccines, right? We are trying to develop some vaccines, but true definitely chemoprophylaxis is not possible, right? But if you are able to kill, you can say that the parasites that are emerging from the liver and they are entering the, you can say that pre-erythrocytic, you can say endoerythrocytic cycle, definitely purpose could be served, right? So that's why we have said that it's a chemoprophylaxis, right? It is blocking the link between exoerythrocytic and endoerythrocytic phase. Last one is the drug for the site of the action for the drugs which are used to prevent the transmission, because they are killing the gametocytes. Okay, so again this is a very important action, because you also need to kill those gametocytes, otherwise a next mosquito bite will take that gametocytes and will result in leukocyte, right? Remember that drugs which are effective in killing these schizons, they are not effective in killing the gametocytes, right? Or they are having very less activity, like chloroquine is having very good activity here, but a moderate or a very mild activity on the gametocyte. That's why it is not able to prevent the transmission, right? Again, you drug which you need to give here is a primaquine, right? So site of this action, right, of various anti-malarial drug is a very important one to learn its classification, right? So we have learned 4 sites, right? Again we are revising. First one, site of action of drug which are used to treat acute attack. Definitely these are blood schizontecidial agent, they are acting on the endoerythrocytes. Next is drugs which are used as a for radical cure, in that case they are tissue schizontecidial agent, and they are very important for the treatment and management of plasmodium vivax and plasmodium ovale infection. Third one is definitely one which blocks exoerythrocytic and endoerythrocytic, link between exoerythrocytic cycle and endoerythrocytic cycle, and that is they are used for chemoprophylaxis. Okay, and finally to prevent transmission you need to kill gametocytes, and these are the site of action for drugs which are used to prevent the transmission. I hope it is clear, right? So let's move toward the various, you can say, characteristic of species, right, of the plasmodium, right, which are known to cause malaria in the human. So starting with the first one and the most important one is plasmodium falciparum. Plasmodium falciparum is having erythrocytic cycle of 48 hours, and there is no exoerythrocytic phase for the plasmodium falciparum, right? So that means if a drug for chemoprophylaxis is effectively used, then definitely it will solve the problem. Okay, that's how you will use as far as the therapeutics or management of the disease is concerned. Fine. Now this 48-hour also is a very important parameter to be remembered, because this will decide the rhythmic, you can say, symptoms, right, or you can say shivering effects which is observed at regular duration, and you can just see that. That's why I have mentioned here that it is producing tertian malaria, right? Tertian malaria means every third day the fever will be produced, right? Why every third day? Because at the end of 48 hours that RBCs will get ruptured. You know that RBCs, right, that are here, you can say that all schizons, right, merocytes which are present in this RBC, right? This, once you can say that 48-hour cycle is completed, right, this now will rupture, and that will release not only merozoite but also HemaJoin and lots of TNF alpha, and this TNF alpha HemaJoin will lead to development of characteristic chills, right, development of shivering effects, right, and that's why you call it as a tertian malaria. Fever will reoccur at every third day. Why do we call it as a malignant? Because this is a lethal form of a malaria, Okay, why lethal form? Now lethal form is because of, because that two things you need to consider, right? One is definitely it's not visible. Okay, fine. So say for example this is the RBC, okay, and here is, you can say that a schizon that is present. Now because of this parasite growing inside the RBC will show some proteins on the cell surface. This is called as adhesion molecules, right? These RBCs, right, infected RBCs, they will show such adhesion molecule, and this adhesion molecule, they do tend to stick with another RBC. This is one more RBC which is not infected, but definitely because of these surface molecules, adhesion molecules, it will stick with another RBCs. So such sticking may clog smaller artery, right? If definitely artery is big, then there will be no issue, but then if arteriole is there, all capillary is there, then definitely there is a chance that this type of an cluster of RBC, which you call as a rosette, right? This is called as a rosette. This type of cluster of RBC may clog the capillary, right? Especially small circulation, microcirculation may get affected. Such is the observation in case of kidney, and that is why Plasmodium falciparum, if not treated within a week, it may produce such problems in the circulation, in the kidneys, and that's why it results in kidney failure or maybe encephalopathy, right? What you call as a brain malaria, right? Symptoms which are related with the fever, high grade fever, and that results in a encephalopathy, right? So such type of complication, organ dysfunctioning is a common with falciparum, and that's why mortality is very high, lethality is very high, right? So because of this organ dysfunctioning, it is considered a lethal strain, and that is why we call as a malignant tertian malaria, right? The malaria produced by falciparum is called as a malignant tertian malaria. Gujarati માં આપણે કહેશું ઝેરી malaria. Okay, fine. ચલો. Next is Plasmodium vivax. This produces benign tertian malaria, right? Benign because it is a less lethal form. Okay, and tertian because again here it is the malaria that is produces after definitely after every 2 days, that is third day, right? That's why tertian malaria, right? And yes, definitely here along with the erythrocytic cycle there is also presence of exoerythrocytic cycle, and that's why in management, right, therapeutics we definitely need to consider. So in management of Plasmodium vivax you need to go for a blood schizonticidial agent as well as tissue schizonticidial agent, otherwise relapses will occur. Fine. Moving toward the third is a Plasmodium ovale. This is rare type of an form of an Plasmodium which causes malaria, and it follows a 48-hour cycle in case of the erythrocytic cycle, endoerythrocytic cycle. Definitely relapses could occur because exoerythrocytic. So exoerythrocytic cycle is there with the Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium ovale both. Next to definitely Plasmodium malaria. So this is having a characteristic 72-hour erythrocytic cycle, and that's why the fever pattern is at every fourth day. Because the fever pattern is at every fourth day, that's why called as a quartan malaria. And definitely here there is no exoerythrocytic cycle. Okay, so this definitely characteristic if you are knowing, then after identification from the histopathology, then you will be able to manage, right? You will be able to understand the symptoms, you will be able to understand pathology, and you will be able to manage the malaria, right? Therapeutics definitely you will be able to select rightly. Fine. Last one is Plasmodium knowlesi. As I told you that previously 4 species were reported. Knowlesi is comparatively recent, right? Recent also that I am saying 10-15 years ago. Fine. So previously it was known to us. It was not like that it was not known to the humans, but it was considered as a zoonotic malarial parasite. That is, it was a causative agent, causative Plasmodium for the malaria in animals, right? But then we came to know that it is a lethal, sometime lethal, right, and a very important malarial parasite in some regions, like say for example Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, right? These all countries you can consider, and sometime it is lethal, right? So definitely it is now recognized as a very important parasite. Erythrocytic cycle pattern is of 24 hours. Now some of you may also consider that why we are having a concern if this is a type of, you can say, malarial parasite in Southeast Asian countries only. say for example, if you are traveling for a business purpose in this country like Malaysia, then definitely you will be now understanding the importance of this Plasmodium knowledge. Okay, fine. So that completes discussion for the characteristic of all these human malarial parasites. Fine. And with this we also complete today's lecture, right? And next lecture we will definitely start directly with the classification. I know that your exams are very soon, so I am not forcing you to go for this assignment, but if you try to find out the details which are related that I have asked as a comment, uh, especially for those who are preparing for GPAT, definitely this knowledge will be very helpful to you. Okay, if you are finding the answers, definitely you can WhatsApp me the answers, right? Otherwise, definitely wherever we'll meet to the college, then I will ask for such comments, for answers of these comments. Okay, chalo, thank you very much.